the second thing I want to talk about, I call the spot. I know what process in the person I want, and that process is a turning on what the client is saying and having the spot that they're at. Now, to tell a person we're going to go inside is threatening and feels unpleasant. Oh, I got to go to this ugly place. But when I can reflect where they're already at and produce this little moment of, oh yeah, that's where it's at, then the process will move. And I have to explain what a spot is and how I sense it. From a spot, it has its own direction. From a spot, I cannot know and don't have to know. The client cannot know and does not have to know how it moves. From a spot, it moves. So what we all want is we want the client to be at a spot and have that spot so it can move. And it's something that has to come. But I sense, when I listen, I sense and I point to where it might turn. Now, sometimes it's as simple as saying, let me say that again. Sometimes if I'm corrected a lot, when I finally get it right, then I'll say, oh, if that's right, I'll say it again. But there's something about recognizing interactionally between us that's the spot we're at. That feels good. And that can move, and when it moves of its own accord from inside, that feels good. That's not threatening. But one always expects it to be, in general, from the top looking down. But when you're already there, oh, that feels good to have that. So to make something into a spot is a way of being where you already are, but becoming the owner of it, becoming that you have it, that you sense it, that it's there, and it's the thing that Ann always says in general about turning and listening to that thing that you were afraid of. But it's kind of hard to do from the top down, whereas if you have some other person who is reflecting, understanding you, it becomes an interactional reality, and then you can actually be having it. Right, and you can see that very clearly in this segment here, because before the shift, before the spot moves, there is this time when she has her spot. It hasn't moved yet. That it does of its own accord. To move, it does of its own accord. That you don't make and she doesn't make. But she has her spot, and that feels good to her at the very same place where she was, for a lifetime so far, she's young, not possible for her to have. Instead of that, she was stuck in the hiding, in the apathy, she calls it, in the place where she would have a joint. That's where she was stuck in it. But when we can correctly point like that and reflect like that, then she gets to have her spot. And that feels good, and you have to see it, because it resumes life implicitly. And of course the philosophy is behind all this. You've got to understand that there's this implicit precision at every moment of all of life now. And so when she has her spot, instead of being helpless in it, that's a moment of change.